Ladies and gentlemen, guests of the IAA Global Conference, prepare yourselves for a memorable encounter. The next guest is an American inventor, electronics engineer, programmer, philanthropist, and technology entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage the creator of Apple I and Apple II, co-founder of Apple, the world's #1 brand, Mr. Steve Wozniak.
So did you see me do this or not? You can't see me if I put this on my desk, right?
Well, after 9/11, you'd go on airplanes and they would give you a plastic knife and it wouldn't cut the steak, so I would take my metal business cards and slice them up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. See you later. Have fun.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right, let's fight our way through the fog. God, it's like being in San Francisco. Actually, the fog in San Francisco smells of burning wood at the moment. It's a bit worrying. I was there last week. Anyway, brilliant. Welcome, Steve. It's wonderful to have you here. I hope you can all see us as the fog clears. That was quite an entrance, possibly a bit too much of an entrance with the fog. Anyway, as I was saying, you were really there at the creation. We've seen the modern technology industry grow up around us, but you were there right back at the start. So I thought the place that we should start with this conversation would be to go right back to the beginning, to the Homebrew Computer Club in March 1975, is that it? So tell us about that. What was it like, and how was that where it all began?
I wound up in this thing called a computer club. Eventually, it was just a startup of 40 people interested in technology and what the benefits of it could be if we could create our own. And I am so lucky to have been there on the first day. This club was talking about a social revolution. And when you're young, you always want to overturn things and change things and make them better your way. So I love the idea of a revolution. The big computer companies didn't think these small, affordable machines would ever be very valuable. The big companies were putting us down, but we would meet, and we had a lot of people. We didn't have the sort of people that own companies and direct other people around. We were all into just freedom, into sharing ideas, technology, how to do things, sharing parts, and we were talking about this revolution we were going to create that would give us better communication. You could type a message and maybe in 1 hour, 100 people could read it. And that was just an amazing accomplishment if we could do it. And education, students would answer questions and be told right away, right or wrong. You wouldn't have to wait 12 hours to go to class and find out your homework answers. And we technologists, those of us that knew how to use this equipment, were going to be the leaders of the revolution. We weren't political. We never taught one political idea ever, just technology, what parts were available, what they might be able to do. Well, my talents were not in the social area. They were in the engineering and the creative areas. And I sat down, and I was at a place in my life where I'd been building project after project after project with magic pouring out of my head. But I was at a place in my life that I was going to build a computer for myself that was useful, that I could afford. It wasn't just the name computer, it was going to be usable for something. I built that sort of useless computer 5 years before, the week I met Steve Jobs. I was going to build the computer, and I very quickly saw a formula in my head to make it affordable. All the right parts came down in price and made it affordable to a normal person that particular summer, and I built my first machine. I showed it off at the club. Now, because I was part of a revolution, not part of a company, I gave away my designs for free. No copyrights, nothing. All my hardware, all my software, I wrote a computer language even. I just gave it away to everyone at the club to help them build their own machines and start the revolution. And then I had these genius ideas for how to combine gaming and computers. Who needs a computer in the home? Back in those days, all computers did was inventory levels, sales figures, fraud costs, tax calculations. who needs that in your home? Computer had to play games. It had to be fun. And I wrote a language that would play games, just like Bill Gates did for one microprocessor. I did it for my microprocessor. But I had invented games and built games for Atari Corporation. They were starting an industry of arcade games, the games you go in and play with joysticks. But all the games so far were black and white, designed with hardware chips, and it took an engineer a year to make a prototype. It wasn't like a 9-year-old kid would write a program and make things move on a screen and they could write a game in a day or two. No, these things took a year to design. So the computer that I had, that I was also working on, became eventually the Apple II computer, was the first time ever that arcade games were color. And the first time ever that arcade games were software. A 9-year-old kid, an 11-year-old kid could sit down and write, move the vertical, move the horizontal, move the vertical, and write a program that made things move on a screen.
So I was one of those 11-year-old kids, and thank you very much. I was writing games way back then as well, with moving things around on the screen. I remember Space Invaders in the arcade had the plastic strips stuck on a black and white screen to make it look colour. That's how rubbish those machines were at the time.
That's what inspired me. I saw a machine down at Atari on the factory floor when I was designing Breakout, the game where you hit balls against bricks. I was designing that for Atari, and I saw something moving on a screen back and forth in color because of colored strips on the screen, and I said, whoa, I knew how color worked in analog television. I was an analog engineer, waves, sine waves for red, blue, green, and all that, and how to mix them, and it cost $5,000, and I went 4 days and nights designing a hardware game for Atari, 4 days and nights with no sleep. And when you have no sleep, your head kind of drifts off like when you're falling asleep or waking up. And my head was in this flaky mode, and I thought, oh my gosh, what if I took a number in a computer, numbers in computers, zeros and ones. 0 is a low voltage, 1 is a high voltage. And if I put that number onto a wire into a television at the right speed, every single color television would think it was color. Of course, it had never been done that way in any book, and it was free. Instead of $5,000, it was free color. So that was a big important step. And then around that time, Steve Jobs came into town. He came in about once a year, and he turned whatever I was designing at the time into money for both of us. And he didn't take me down to a computer club. Don't believe that stuff. I was a hero at the club, showing off my computer every 2 weeks, giving away my designs. And I told Steve, you've got to come down to the club and see this machine, see the reaction. And he watched all the people around it, and that's when he said we should start a company, not a computer company, but a company to build a part of the computer for $20 and sell it for $40. We had no money. We had no bank accounts. We had no rich relatives. We had no business experience, so you have to do with what you can do. And that was, and then first of all, I would never give up my job as an engineer at the greatest engineering company in the world at the time, Hewlett-Packard. So I proposed it to Hewlett-Packard, the personal computer, and they turned me down for the first of 5 times. 5 times. They just didn't see that it was going to be valuable and worth so much money. So Steve and I were in business. We had to start Apple.
Brilliant.
And then we built up the computers real fast, tested them in the garage, and then we drove them down to the computer store and got paid cash on delivery. So that's how you do it when you have no money. That's the humility. By the way, we only needed the garage about 3 hours every week to, make sure that about 10 computers were good. We never once in a garage did company things. We never talked about a product, what it should be. That was all in my own head, in my own time, and my own places. We never once did any engineering. That was all me somewhere else. We never did any prototyping. We never did any manufacturing. Steve did the business on a telephone in his bedroom, and then he extended a long phone line up to the garage so he could sit there, but nobody was hardly ever in the garage. We didn't have desks and anything like a real company. It's sort of just a moniker for the fact that we were humble and poor.
Okay guys, so if you're setting up garages, like inside your offices to make yourselves creative, it's all a myth.
Yeah, but if you have no money, you'll find yourself starting a business in your own home, always.
So you were, anyway, these boards that you were assembling and then doing a few each month with the components on credit, that's what we now know as the Apple I, yep?
That was Apple I, and we might have built and sold 150 of them over some period of time. We built up a little bank account of about $10,000, pretty impressive. I mean, Steve was taking on all the business aspects, and I was sitting there designing and writing software for the next follow-on products. But the Apple II, the first time that arcade games were color, the first time they were software, this machine was going to make a big company. It was going to be successful. My engineer friends at Hewlett-Packard said this is the best product they'd ever seen, even though the company couldn't justify it as a product. And we knew we'd get something, so we got an investor. The investor came in. We had 3 equal partners at Apple. Steve Jobs, myself, and our investor, Mike Markkula, owned just as much of the company, and he ran marketing. He told us how to set up a business, who did what jobs and what their functions were. So he's really the one who created Apple as a company. Steve and I were in our young 20s. I ran engineering, obviously, and Steve's job was to just interact with everybody and talk with them. He was so inspiring, and to learn how to run all the parts of the company.
Well, let's talk about the actual creation of the Apple II. It's been called the most staggering burst of technical invention in high-tech history by a single person.